weather the right-of-way is exposed to and the relentless pounding dished out by tons of rolling stock, keeping the railways maintained is no small task.
Railroads are subject to all the vicissitudes of the weather, you know, the rain, the wind, flooding, heat, temperature, snow, all that sort of thing. And so any railroad takes a tremendous beating throughout the course of a year. So just keeping the railroad going requires an army of people working with tens of millions of dollars of equipment.
What if your job had a cool train layout like this one? Well, that's exactly the case at Kalmbach Publishing in Milwaukee, where the employees are encouraged to play with one of the largest train layouts in the country.
We're standing about in the center of the MR&T. That's the Milwaukee, Racine, and Troy Model Railroad Club from Kalmbach Publishing Company. It's based loosely on the southeastern part of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, leaving out of Milwaukee and then going through some of the small towns in the region.
Kalmbach Publishing is home to this amazing 1,500 square foot HO layout.
It's a very large layout, and it depicts a typical railroad that you might see in southeastern Wisconsin, hence the names, you know, Milwaukee, Racine, and Troy. And the MR&T, of course, apply to the initials of the two original Kalmbach magazines, Model Railroader and Trains.
As well as home to the nation's largest, longest running, and highly respected publisher of train and model railroad magazines.
Kalmbach was organized in 1934 by its namesake, Al Kalmbach, who was a Marquette University grad who couldn't get a job. It was the Depression, so he did the next best thing he always loved, which was get into the printing and publishing business. And because he was a model railroader, he chose to launch Model Railroader magazine in 1934.
Now Kalmbach keeps about 300 people employed, producing around 15 monthly and annual titles, including its other big seller, Trains. But the engine pulling this train, as it has now for 70 years, is still Model Railroader magazine, with a circulation of about 175,000, making it far and away Kalmbach's most popular publication. Folks that work on Model Railroader magazine also know how important it is to actually get in and run trains too. They have a company that owns a layout of their very own. Like many of us, they struggle to keep the trains running. High on the list of priorities is track that functions properly.
Track maintenance is critical to having any type of operating model railroad. On a model railroad this big, if you don't have track that runs reliably, you might as well just take the whole thing down and get into another hobby, because there's nothing more frustrating than to constantly have trains falling off the track. So track maintenance is critical to having an enjoyable model railroad.
Now don't go away. When we come back, we're going to get an even closer look at Kalmbach's gorgeous train layout. And then a little later, we're going to go into the workshop to give you some tips on maintaining your model train layout. Back to working on the railroad. What we're talking about today is track maintenance, whether those tracks are on a ballast road bed or up on a gorgeous trestle. Let's head back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for an up-close look at Kalmbach Publishing's beautiful HO layout.
This is an HO scale model railroad that the company sponsors. It's a club layout. Any employee is welcome to come and work on the layout at any time.
And when they say work on, they really mean work on. This layout is more than fun and games.
It's really the testing lab for Model Railroader magazine. We do all sorts of different things as far as article projects here. We test products here from manufacturers, new things out on the market, and we do product reviews and things like that.
One employee doing just that is assistant editor Cody Grivno.
You know, this is my dream job, and to have the opportunity to come out of college and fulfill my lifelong dream is wonderful. I've been a model railroader since I was about 5 years old. My father got me interested in both model railroading and rail photography, rail fanning. It's just really interesting. This is a magazine project that I worked on over the course of the day. I'd come down here, work a few hours, and then go back, do magazine work, and then, as things were drying, I could come in and get work done. I made it into kind of a step-by-step project where I go through, I talk about the initial preparation that went into building the article, and then in the next step I go and talk about shaping the foam and adding the plaster impregnated gauze. And then on the last pages I talk about doing the work on the backdrop.
Yes, it's true. These guys at Comback have found a way to get paid to play with model trains.
This project on the MR&T happens to be my pet project, actually. It's adding commuter service. Commuter rail is big business these days, especially with, expressways being more and more congested and there's just nowhere to build more lanes. So we're adding commuter rail service to the Milwaukee and greater metropolitan area, doing so with bi-level cars here in Amtrak paint schemes. But in order to do that, we've had to add passenger facilities.
Model railroading, I think, takes a lot of the things that are interesting about railroading and then adds this whole extra dimension of the modeling, the do-it-yourself sort of thing. I know a lot of my friends who are railroad fans got into modeling because much of the world of railroading that they loved is gone, and so what do? Well, you just recreate that in your basement. And so I think a lot of what motivates some modelers is this ability to create your own world.
And how do we think modeler and publisher Al Kalmbach would like the efforts of these Kalmbach employees to keep his world on track?
I think Al Kalmbach would love this layout. There are photos of him standing next to an old friend of mine when he was a young man, looking at a layout. You can look at kind of the twinkle in Al's eye, and you can see that he's enjoying the model railroad as much as my friend was.
That is one long history of model railroading and publishing. Now, don't go away, because when we come back, we're in the workshop to give you some tips on keeping your track on track. Working on the railroad, I'm Chris Chianelli, and we're back in our workshop here. What we're talking about today is one of the most important things and often most neglected, especially by the beginner, things to do to your layout, namely track maintenance and cleaning. If your track isn't clean and well maintained, your trains will run erratically or not run at all, and that can be very frustrating. Here to talk more about how to keep your track clean is my buddy David Popp.
Hi, Chris.
What's up?
Well, before we talk about track maintenance, we probably should talk about the track itself. If you get started in model railroading by buying a train set, chances are good you're going to start with set track, or sectional track as it's called. Now, all model train track comes with some type of metal rail. In this case, we're using nickel silver for the rail, and it's mounted to a plastic tie strip. And you can see the plastic ties are all here. In sectional track, the curves are all pre-made. The straight sections come in set sizes, and so pretty much you can build a model railroad by following a plan, a blueprint of using particular size curves, particular size straights, and away you go. It makes a very nice, easy to build model railroad. Probably the next step up from set track would be this here. These are track sections that have the roadbed added to the tie strip. So you've got your plastic ties, your metal rails, but now you have roadbed sections too.
And the alloy in the rail is the same?
Yeah, the alloy in the rail is probably very similar. It's still a nickel silver type, though this rail looks a little bit thinner than that rail. So it may have a little more realistic appearance to it. But the nice thing about this stuff is that it has little locking rail joiners that it just clicks together. And so you can put this out on your carpet if you want a temporary model railroad and you're just going to set it up like on the kitchen table or in your living room, for instance. You can click all this track together just like the set track and have an easy-to-use model railroad that you can take down when you're done and put it away. So if you don't have a lot of room for a model railroad, you can still have a model railroad. Okay, stepping up from that yet is flex track. Now these come in usually 3-foot lengths.
A lot of more advanced guys use this.
Yeah, more advanced guys will use this. These come in 3-foot lengths. We still have our plastic tie strip. We still have our metal rails. But the neat thing about flex track is that you can curve it pretty much to any shape you want. But whatever track you decide to use, there are still going to be track cleaning issues and track maintenance issues. And so
it's all got to be kept clean.
It's all got to be kept clean, exactly. What I've got in the center here are some track cleaning components. Let's start with the most basic, and that would be this guy here. This is called a Bright Boy, or it's basically what it is. It's an abrasive block. It has grit, like sandpaper, kind of bound into a rubbery material.
It looks like an eraser, but rough.
Yeah, actually, that's almost exactly what it is. It's kind of like those old typing erasers.
Yeah.
And what you do with it is you simply put it on top of your track and you move it back and forth. And it scrubs any of the grime that would be on top of the rails off. If you want to get a little more sophisticated than the track cleaning block there, you can take and use a track cleaning car. This particular car here is made by Aztec, and it comes with a couple of different rollers. This one in particular has a cloth surface to it, so you can use a chemical cleaner, something like Goo Gone, which I've got sitting over here. This is a nice cleaner for model railroad track because of the fact that it won't damage your surrounding scenery and things like that, but it'll take the grease, the grime, any sticky stuff off. It has a nice little citrusy smell too, so your railroad will smell fresh and clean.
Do any of them improve the conductivity by virtue of what's in the solution?
Yes, you can get actually you can use cleaning solutions that are specifically made to improve conductivity.
Okay.
Anytime you take any interference between the wheel and the rail off, you're improving conductivity anyway, but there are materials that will do that, yeah. In addition to that, there is this is called Kratex is the material, but basically it's the same stuff as that track cleaning block, just that it's now in a roller form, so that guy would slip right inside there, and then you run it around the railroad like you would any other normal freight car. In addition to that, this roller just has a white canvas on it. This is kind of a buffing action, basically. You wouldn't necessarily put a liquid cleaner on this at all. You could take and just stick that in the car and run it around. A lot of people will use this after they've used a chemical cleaner.
I was going to ask you, is this the final step?
Yeah, this would be the final step then. Track cleaning cars come in a whole bunch of different sizes. As you can see on the table over here, we have everything from O scale down to little Z scale on the bottom there. That Z scale car has a little mini Kratex roller in it. And basically with a track cleaning car like this, you would hook it into a freight train and just leave it on your layout. So it would run around the tracks periodically and keep the maintenance up. There are a number of different cleaning cars available. I can show you this one, for example. This has not only a roller, it's got little brushes in the bottom.
Yeah.
And then it has a bar magnet as well. A lot of times when you're working on a model railroad, you might get little metal filings from things that fall along the track, and you don't want your locomotives to pick those up in the gearing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the gears on locomotives are exposed on the bottom, and they have grease, to keep them lubricated. They can collect all sorts of things. And
jam things up.
Right. And so the little brushes can help keep the ground foam and other things, scenery materials off the layout. The magnet picks up your metal filings and stuff like that, and so it's kind of a nice little all-inclusive package.
Now, it's not just about keeping the rails clean. There's a lot more involved with track maintenance, correct?
Mm-hmm. There are a number of things that you should check on your railroad on a regular basis, and most of those things just involve using an assortment of different hand tools, like we've got shown here, to keep ballast out of places it doesn't belong and fix little problems with the rail.
All right, now don't go away, because when we come back, we're going to show you how to keep your track in tip-top shape. Welcome back to Working on the Railroad. What David and I are talking about today is track cleaning and maintenance, two of the most important things to keep your trains rolling reliably.
Yeah, well, we should probably check to see what our tracks look like here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just a test. And we'll wipe this white paper towel over there. And yeah, sure enough, we've got some grime and dirt that we're going to have to take care of.
They look pretty bad.
Yeah, it doesn't look all that good, does it?
You've been asleep at the switch with the track cleaning, or what?
Well, we've been busy. Another thing, obviously, that you can do is that if your locomotives stall out, and we'll take and move our locomotive here, and yeah, it looks like we're running okay there. But if your locomotive, oh, see, all right, if your locomotives run rough, then yeah, you definitely have some spots to clean.
And that's really annoying when that happens.
Yeah, it is. We had done some ballasting work on the layout, and so
some glue or something?
Yeah, there's some glue or something there. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with the Bright Boy here. Let me take and you can slide the locomotive back over there. We'll start with our Bright Boy here, and just see if we can scrub some of that material off.
Oh yeah, it's getting shiny already.
Yeah, it should. Yeah, and that's, if you look at it from the side, you can usually see that it's got a dull dull glare to it.
I noticed it was shiny over here and dull over there.
Yeah. Oh, man, that stuff is really on there, isn't it? Usually it's a good idea if you're doing any track work at all, like putting ballast down or scenery material in the area, that you come through shortly after you've finished and bright boy it anyway, just because of the fact that it can take and harden on there so you can't get it off.
Now those bright boys, do they come in like one grit or is one side rougher than
Pretty
the
much it's a one-size-fits-all.
Okay.
Now, since we were doing some ballast work, we've got some other spots we'll need to fix here. A couple tools that I like to use for cleaning ballast out of places are a toothbrush and an old X-Acto knife. This one's got a broken tip to it, so it doesn't have a sharp point anymore, but it's great for digging things out. As you can see, we've got a spot here on the railroad that there's too much ballast. It didn't get cleaned off the top before it got glued, and so we've got this bump here now that's going to derail everything that goes over it.
It's piled as high as the rail.
Yeah, it's pretty much piled as high as the rail, so we're going to want to make sure we get it off of that side. Probably the best thing to do is lay the knife right in next to the rail and then kind of just cut along. The adhesives we're using on all of this are pretty flexible, and so they're fairly easy to take and cut away with just a knife blade. Once you've got that done, just come in with your toothbrush there and you've got it clean. All right, so we got the ballast out of there, but we've still got some gunk that appears to be on the rails here. Instead of using the Bright Boy this time, let's try using the Goo Gone.
Now for this heavier residue, you can't use one of the cleaning cars.
Right. The track cleaning cars are great for routine maintenance. Once you've got your track up and running, if you just run the car on a regular basis, that's perfect for that.
Once they're in good shape.
Once they're in good shape.
It helps keep them that way.
Right. But for a little more heavy-duty work, you're going to have to put some muscle into it.
Yeah.
So we've got our Goo Gone on there. Yeah, look at that. Quite a bit of gunk.
Boy, that stuff really dissolves it and picks it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, works very, very nice.
All right, now that the heavy-duty handwork is done, time to bring on a cleaning car, right?
Sure, you bring on a cleaning car. I've got the liquid cleaning car all primed and ready to go here. It's got
you see it's filled up.
Right, it's got some more cleaner in the tank. For this type of work, I usually like to use just plain old rubbing alcohol. So we'll get the car on the track there. Roll it back over here to our locomotive, and then basically it's taken on a tour of the layout.
And you can't run one of these cars too much.
No, you can't. Actually, like I said before, it's probably a good thing to just leave it on the railroad hooked up to a freight train somewhere, and you just move it around every time that train moves.
You can have the most awesome layout, beautiful topography, awesome buildings. If your trains don't run, you're not going to have any fun. And that's where track cleaning and maintenance come in. For more information, go to our website, DIYnetwork.com. With all the clever tools and cool cleaning cars, there's no excuse for you to not have a set of pristine rails. On behalf of David Popp, I'm Chris Chianelli. Thanks for joining us here on Working on the Railroad. We'll see you next time.